Everyone, happy Wednesday. Sorry I'm not there with you today. Today we are going to bridge our conversation from yesterday and start understanding why I gave you guys the map activity. Remember, we are in chapter 2, which is about Indigenous Americans. So in this video, you're going to find out what you need to accomplish in class today. So thinking back to yesterday, I gave each of you in a group a map and had you label at least 8 different, maybe 7 on some, native tribes, indigenous tribes that settled throughout both the United States and Canada in history. And I wanted you to label where they had originally settled before the Columbian era, so before Columbus arrived, before European colonization and exploration. So if you remember from yesterday, the expectation was that you looked up what the maps used to look like, and then I had you label. And so I want you to imagine that if I were there, we put all those maps together. We laid them all on top of each other. Okay? In chapter 2, our goal is to describe how the environment and natural resources of North America influence the development of indigenous daily life and culture. And I mentioned yesterday, before we start, what is the difference between Native American Indians and Indigenous Americans? And so before we even jump in, I wanted to talk a lot about who we are talking about. So when we look at the maps you guys created, I took some screenshots here of some. There were 56 total tribal nations in our activity that were spanning across North America. However, there are actually 565 federally recognized tribes in the United States and another 600 Canadian, what they call First Nations. That's the term they use to recognize Indigenous communities. So there are far more than we could have even mentioned during our group activity yesterday. In total, there are, in the United States, over 6 million people in 2020 who identify as American Indian. And then you'll notice over here, these are some of the nations I had you guys label yesterday. So if you labeled Cherokee, Choctaw, Lumbee, Muskogee, Chippewa, Apache, all of that. So that we're talking about a massive group of people. Why does that matter so much? Over time, in American history, this number has gone down tremendously, although it is actually interestingly on the rise. But over time, the land itself has been lost via either an executive order from the president or some sort of agreement from the government or conflict at times. So quickly we're going to watch a map about what happened to what your maps that you labeled yesterday had versus what it looks like now. Fast forward here. It says, between 1776 and 1887, the United States seized over 1.5 billion acres from America's indigenous people by treaty or executive order. The video calls it an invasion, which we'll talk about. As you watch the map, I want you to pay attention over here to the timeline. 1783, this is when we were a brand new country with a new constitution. The blue is the Indian homeland, the map we labeled yesterday. The orange becomes what are called reservations. Now, as of 2010, which is when this video stops, and I will say nothing has changed since then, we can see that there are a handful of reservations, but it's dramatically different from where it started, which is the map that we did yesterday. Now, today we're going to start talking about this conversation. The events of this video will be covered throughout this year. When we learn about, for example, the Civil War, we will talk a lot about the Indian Removal Act, but we will continue to sort of refine our understanding. But for today, I want you to imagine, like I said, that we put all of these maps together, essentially on top of each other. Good news, you don't have to do any work for that. Someone already did. It's called the Native Land Digital, which is this massive database that actually lays all of those maps on top of each other. So you'll notice it looks sort of similar to what we did yesterday, but it's the everyone together type version. You guys are going to be using this as a resource today. We're going to start small. I want you to explore your address. So what you're going to do for today is in Schoology there is an activity that is titled The Introduction to Indigenous America. Once you put that in Notability, or you can grab a paper copy, you're going to go to this website, Native Land Digital, and if you have the paper copy, here is what the link is titled, and you're going to type in your address. So if I type in our school's address, it'll take us to this region, and you'll notice that there's a lot of overlay with what the indigenous history of this land is. Once you find your actual address, you'll notice there's going to be 6 tribes listed. These are the 6 that previously had historical designations on this territory. That's going to help you answer the first question. You're going to list all 6 of them, and then I want you to click on one of the linked tribes and fill in the information here, including where is the tribal nation now located, what about the actual functioning tribe as it is now, and then what do they do for the members of that tribe today. So for example, if I were to click on Peoria, it'll take me to one more page within the website, and then you'll notice it'll say Peoria Tribe of Oklahoma. This one definitely moved over time. This is their website. So what you're going to do is use these tabs up here to learn a little bit about it. So home, for example, will tell you a little bit about where it is located today. And then if you want to know a little bit about the history and some interesting tidbits about the structure, here is that explanation, as well as some more information about the ancestral grounds. And then the last question is, what are 2 things that they currently provide to its members? You're going to probably click on either services or government. Every single federally recognized tribe has a website like this. So you can use these websites to answer those questions and learn a little bit more about what used to be here in what is now Wilmette. So that's part 1, who was here before us. After part 1, you're going to go on to part 2. Am I using the right word? We started to talk about this yesterday, but you're going to read both parts, and I want you to annotate. Highlight things that you already knew in yellow and highlight new information in blue. After you're done reading, I want you to go back and answer. There's 3 questions total. There's 1 here, and then 2 on the end of the table about things to keep in mind. We will talk about this entire activity tomorrow once I come back. All right, have a good day. Thank you.